do this. Hi everyone and welcome back to the show, and today is so exciting because we've got the first of our book reviews to do. So excited. So I am currently reading all the books, okay, and I am very excited for this. Book reviews was all the rage back in my primary school, but I always remember finding them very, very tricky to do. And I just, when I started the first book, I was doing my personal response to the book. I remember finding it really, really hard. It just reminded me back of primary school, but it found it really hard to start. Yeah, so I basically have not done book reviews since primary school, and they were very, very hard to do. But it was all rage back in my primary school. You'd have to do those. But anyway, so I'm very excited. So for each book, we're going to be doing a book review. Okay, so very excited. So today is, of course, going to be book 1, Game Changer. I'm just so excited. So far, this is my favourite. So far, this is my favourite. Okay, so yeah, and you guys know why. You guys know why. You guys know why. You guys know why. Okay, so yeah, so very, very excited. So I just want to get stuck straight in. Okay. These book reviews, they'll be broken down into various segments. Okay, so just brace yourselves for that. Okay, so here we go. So first book review. Let's go. So let's start with the essential details and the content summary. So Game Changer by Rachel Reed. Game Changer by Rachel Reed is an hockey romance about Scott Hunter, a closeted AHL team captain who falls for Kip Grady, a witty barista. After a smoothie from Kip helps break a slump, their high-intensity secret romance faces pressure from the upcoming playoffs, forcing Scott to choose between his career and publicly claiming Kip. Right, I'm now going to go through some of the key plot points. So, I'm going to start with the slump and the smoothie. Scott Hunter is caught in a severe on-ice slump and hides behind a highly polished, straight public persona to protect his career in the hyper-masculine AHL. His look changes when a specific blueberry smoothie made by Kip acts as a lucky charm, prompting him to seek out the barista. Secret high society romance. Scott and Kip begin a passionate but heavily restricted secret romance, mostly confined to Scott's private penthouse. As their feelings deepen, the secrecy becomes emotionally taxing and Kip grows increasingly isolated from his regular life. The ultimatum. As the pressures of the NHL playoffs escalate, Kip realizes he cannot handle being hidden away forever. He pushes for a concrete plan regarding Scott eventually coming out to the public. And then finally, on the coming out and victory, Scott takes the monumental step of revealing his sexuality to his relief. His teammates and the Ad Rules organization are profoundly supportive. The book concludes with Scott's personal growth, acceptance in the sports world, and the team winning the Stanley Cup. Okay, so we're now going to move on to my critical analysis. This is where I'm going to talk about the characters, going to break them down, and also going to go into the themes of the books. For each character breakdown, I'm just going to focus on the couple for that particular book. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with the character breakdowns, and we'll just go to the piece. So let's start with Scott Hunter. So Scott's core personality and motivation. Scott Hunter is the captain of the York Admirals in Rachel Reed's Game Changers universe. He is disciplined, superstitious, long-closeted Earthshell star who battles immense public pressure before becoming the league's first openly gay player. In adaptations, the character is played by actor Francois Arnaud. Superstitious and disciplined, Scott maintains strict control over his routine and personal life to protect his career and deepest secret. Tragic backstory. Orphaned at the age of 12, he found his sense of family and belonging strictly through the sport of hockey. His key relationships: Kip Grady, a juice bar barista who becomes Scott's boyfriend and later his husband. After a landmark public coming out moment, Scott's initial need to keep their relationship completely private behind closed doors causes significant emotional tension between the two. Carter Bourne and team. As the leader of the Admirals, Scott serves as a pillar for his teammates through his hyper-focused nature can make him appear guarded. His character arcs: the struggles for identity. Throughout the series, Scott must balance the hyper-masculine culture of professional hockey with his authentic self. Public coming out. His story ultimately transitions into one of LGBT plus activism, moving from a closely guarded life to a landmark public declaration by kissing his partner Kip. Speaking of which, we're going to move to Kip now. So, Kip Grady. So, Kip's core personality and motivation. Christopher Kip Grady is a 25-year-old barista and the central love interest in the Game Changers universe by Rachel Reed. Holding a history degree, he initially feels professionally stalled while living with his parents in Brooklyn and working at a juice bar. His life changes when New York Admirals captain Scott Hunter visits his store. Charming, resilient, and highly perceptive, Kip provides much of the narrative's emotional anchor. He acts as an effective audience surrogate who humanizes the famous but deeply isolated hockey star, and in adaptations, he is portrayed by Robbie G. Kay. His key relationships: he enters into a passionate but secret relationship with Scott Hunter. While Kip is out and proud, Scott is heavily closeted. Kip serves as a source of emotional stability, and unconditional support for Scott, eventually pushing Scott to confront his fears and embrace his identity. Kip's character arcs. As the series progresses, Kip goes from feeling aimless in his 20s to pursuing a graduate degree and becoming the husband of the first openly gay airshow player. Okay, I'm now going to go on to the themes of the book. So we begin with the closet and identity in professional sports. The book heavily examines the intense psychological toll of being a closeted elite athlete. Scott feels trapped by the expectation to project a specific image, illustrating how professional league often remains unsafe or unsupportive environment for gay athletes. Toxic masculinity and hockey culture. Reed uses the narrative to critique the hyper-masculine, heteronormative culture deeply embedded in professional ice hockey. The sport is depicted as an institution where players feel pressured to suppress parts of their true selves to avoid alienating fans, sponsors, or teammates. Public persona versus private self. A major source of tension is the conflict between Scott's high-profile, carefully managed public life and his private desire for genuine connection. This theme is highlighted by the contrast between Scott's world, filled with fame, constant media scrutiny, and corporate expectations, Kip's world, defined by everyday financial struggles, standard graduate studies, and an authentic, openly gay lifestyle. Opposites attract and vulnerability. The romance relies heavily on an opposites attract dynamic. Kip's comfort with his own identity challenges Scott to confront his fears, showing that true intimacy requires moving past superficial pretenses and risking professional security for personal happiness. Right, and then to finish off the book review, we of course have my personal responses where I get to talk about various points that I really liked about the book. So, here we go. Okay, so my favourite characters, as we all know, my favourite characters are Scott and Kip, and I love seeing how their relationship blossoms from when they meet at Kit's place of work right up to them publicly declaring their love for each other at the Admiral's Cup celebration. And I feel like we go on a really huge journey with these two, and we learn so much about them. And I just feel the connection is there from the get-go, even though at first Kip's not too sure is Scott on his team or not, because, you know, with any athlete you think, are they not? Yeah, and I just feel the two of them, they just have that connection just straight away from the get-go, and I love seeing it from start to finish. And I also love how we take the time to really get to know not just them, but all the characters in the book. They're each filled with their own backstory, which really helps us get to know who the character is and where they are affected in story. So for each of these characters, I kind of feel like, yeah, we get to really know a lot about them. Yeah, that helps them feel more relatable to us, the audience. We get a lot of Kip's friends, and we do get to Scott's teammates. But I think in terms of social life, it's more Kit's got the better one than Scott has. But all these different characters just come into play, and we get to really know one of them as a whole. So that's really good. Now, I really liked that we got a fair amount of hockey scenes in this book, which were described beautifully, and it made me feel like I was actually there in the stands with Kip, cheering on the Admirals in my Scott Her jersey, which you know is in my wardrobe. You've seen me wear it a few times, but yeah, because I just love that, because if you're gonna do a book on hockey, I'm gonna expect at certain points to have some scenes focusing on the hockey, and I think we get a fair amount of that, which is brilliant. And I really felt like, you know, Rachel described it brilliantly. Kind of made me feel like I was actually there in the stands with Kip, having that Admirals jersey on with Scott's name on the back of it. Brilliant. So yeah, brilliant. So I really felt those scenes were done perfectly, especially towards the end. We had obviously the Admirals Cup celebration. That went down really, really well. And I felt that Scott and Kit's relationship, I felt it happened at a more natural state, as the two's feelings from the two's feelings for one another, I should say, they start out like casual, and then eventually it grows into something unbreakable. And the fact that we saw them head out on dates also helped make me, believe in this relationship. I really could see there's a connection between the two from the get-go. I really wanted them to last. So, yes, I really felt their shit. It just felt natural. And the fact we had a lot of dates with them in the book also really helped as well. You could see the two that really want this relationship to work. So, I felt all really believable. And right here comes the fruity bit now. Here comes the fruity bit, right? Here comes the fruity bit. Every time there was a sex scene between Scott and Kip, I was absolutely. I know I'm being recorded. I know the camera's on. I know the microphone's working. I know I'm being recorded, but I've got to do it. I was absolutely turned on every time, and I could feel the attraction they have for one another. And I wanted to be in the room with them while the two of them seemed to be versatile. I was very surprised that Scott ended up being the bottom, and Kip being, you know where I'm going with this, and Kip being the top. Now throughout the book, we do see the two of them flip the roles every now and then. So that's why I use the term versatile for them there. But I was so surprised, because let's face it, who else thought that of the two, Scott would be the top in the relationship and Kip would be the bottom, just because of the fact that Scott's an athlete and Kit's a barista? Okay? I was very, very... In the first sex scene, I was very surprised that Scott ended up being the bottom, so the one getting fucked, and Kip was the top, the one doing the fucking. That really sort of threw me off guard. But hey, you know what? Fair dues. Not all athletes are this big masculine guys. Some of them are soft and vulnerable and want to be, fucked every now and then. But the first way kind of threw me, and then as the rest of the books go off, like, no, do you know what? Yeah, good on him. Good on him. If he knows what he was, it was good for him. Go for it. That was fine. So yeah, but the first time just really the rest of the time. But yeah, but literally every single time, we had a sex scene between those two, I was like, oh. So get me an ice bucket. Get me an ice bucket. Get me an ice bucket. I'm turned on. I'm turned on. I'm turned on. Get me the ice bucket. Give me that. Give me an ice bucket now. I'm turned on. Oh, I'm super turned on right now. But yeah. Now, I really felt that Rachel conveyed the themes brilliantly, showing how hard life can be for Scott, despite how comfortable he is in his sexuality, but has to hide it, and his love for Kip, while on the other hand, showing how Kip is accepted by his loved ones for who he is, no problem, but struggles with being kept a secret. I really love that we got to see both sides, because obviously some people it's not as easy as it looks, and so with Scott, I loved how we saw the trials and tribulations, because I've been involved in hockey as a fan since I was 12 years old, um, and I've only known who I was sexuality wise for 7 years now. So for most of my involvement in hockey, I didn't know what I now know about me. And then, of course, in 2019, that all changed, and I started to kind of realise, actually, do you know what? My sport actually really isn't doing much for me. Because let me tell you, being involved with hockey as a gay guy, whether you are a player like Scott Hunter or you are a supporter of a team like me, it's not easy. So I loved how we really got to sort and understand just exactly what Scott's going through. And then, on the other hand, you had Kip, who his family accepted it, his friends accepted it, and they basically just talk about it like it's no big deal. So I feel like you got the balance there and the best of both worlds. So I thought the balance there was struck right, and and interested to see how the dynamics changed depending on which character it was that we were having this perspective from. But yeah, but I just thought the fees they got that really right. And speaking of it being hard for hockey, there's the big thing I want to point out is obviously towards the end. So towards the end, when Scott is coming out to some of his teammates, I was literally trying to fight back the tears. For two big reasons. Number one, I wasn't prepared for their reactions. I mean, when I was reading the book, I don't know. I got to that point. I don't know what reactions I was expecting from them, but I wasn't expecting it to be just straight away, love being supported. That was the one. The second reason I was weighing up is because that is what I want hockey to be. I want people like me to just come out and just say that and not have to be, worried about the sport, turning on them. And I kind of felt that's part of the book that should have been adapted for the telly. I'm always gonna, be very harsh about the TV adaptation because it focused too much on heated rivalry and not enough on Game Changer. I might do an episode on that, by the way. And I felt I would have loved if this part of the book, I would have loved that to have been adapted onto the telly, so people like me can see that it's okay. It is okay. I just felt that scene, because obviously I had watched all the episodes before starting the books, because I knew it would take ages for me to get round to all the books. I thought I'll just do the TV show first. Only 6 episodes, it's fine, get that done, and then I can start the books. Because when it comes to reading, I do take quite a while to get a book read. So that was mine. That was my reasoning for doing the TV show first, but then coming back to the books. But I would have loved this scene, this part of the book. I would have loved that to be adapted on the telly. You could even have it be Scott and his teammates, maybe topless, or maybe just in their pants, and then Scott does it, like how we have an episode where Scott and Kip are basically, you know, topless, and they have that vulnerable scene. That's what I was kind of wanting this club to have been. I would love that to have been this scene to have been adapted, so people can see when they watch the show, can see it's okay. Yeah. So I was literally, oh god, I'm probably going to put it right now because that was such a powerful scene, and I would love that to be adapted. Okay, and then my final thing I want to put out is even after finishing the book, I wanted to know what comes next for them as a couple. And I wanted to see how Scott handles life being a publicly out athlete and how Kip deals being the partner of a big time celebrity. Because I felt we end the book on kind of the story wrapped up. But at the same time, I kind of felt, I want to know what comes next. Because actually, while this story's kind of done a nice wrapped with a nice bow, there's actually more stories you can then do with the two. Like, how does Scott handle now being out? How does Kip handle being the, civilian in and one half of a power couple in the public eye? And then what happens when the two of them get married and all that? So, it's funny because while on the one hand the book ends the story, it ends one story, but there's so many more stories you can then now tell, and I'd love to just know more. It's like, I just want to have more time with these two because honestly, I love their story every single step of the way, and I just, I just got so invested in it, and I just, really loved this book. I just really, 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 really loved it. Yeah, so it's good. You kind of left me wanting to know more about what happens to these two, and hopefully we'll find out more as I progress along the books. That's my last one. Yeah, so that's all. That is all my bullet points done. So that is my personal response on Game Changer there. Okay, I think we'll just wrap it up. Okay, so let's just go and wrap up the show. And there you go. That is my first book review on the Game Changer series done and dusted. I have to say, I know this is only the first of 6, soon to be 7 books, because obviously the 7th book is coming out next year. I think it's the summer of 2027, I think. Double check that for me, guys. Double check that for me. I think it's the summer of next year, so probably after we've got season 2 of the TV show. Anyway, but I know it's the first book of the series, but I absolutely just loved it from start to finish. I definitely, once I've read all the books once, I definitely will be going back to read this one again, and I'll keep reading it again and again and again and again. And but it's, I'm gonna say it's my favourite so far. It really is. It is my favourite, and it'll be very hard for the others to try and top that because I don't think you're gonna do it. I do not think you're gonna do it. I just obviously. I love Scott and Kip. I loved seeing the relationship and how it flourished. I thought we got a fairly good hockey content in there. Good. And it really, helped me feel like I was actually there in the stands with Kip, cheering on Scott and all that. And I just believed it from start to finish. So I honestly, absolutely loved this first book. I could not put it down. I just could not put it down. I just loved it from start to finish. So there you go. So that is my book review of Game Changer Done Does It. My first book review in a very, very long while. Because like I said, it was all the rage in primary school. I remember in primary school we always had to do, every now and then in the school year, we always had to do book reviews. And I would always find it very, very hard to do. But we're going to give it a good go. That's the first one. Let's say there's going to be plenty more to come. We've got 6 more books to get through. So, yeah. But this first book was just the best for me, and I really loved it. So I would highly. So if you've only watched the TV show and you've not started the books yet, I definitely, highly cannot recommend this first book enough. I absolutely loved Game Changer, and I would highly recommend you go and read it. Absolutely. Especially as how, of course, the TV show does not give Scott and Kip the airtime they deserve. Because in the TV show, obviously we have episode 3 dedicated to their story, but it stops at the breakup. Episode 3 stops at the breakup, and then we come back to them at the very, very end of episode 5, and straight away it's that big coming out moment. But there's a lot that happens before we get to that big moment. You know, and then episode 6 just completely fucks it up. Because episode 6 is literally just one scene. It's the very start of the episode. Episode 6. It's at the very start. It's basically Scott, you know, getting his MVP award, doing his speech. But the show mucked it up because in the book, Kip's there with him. In the book, Kip is actually there with him. But in the TV show, Kip's not there. He's back home. So I thought, you've wrecked that. You've wrecked that. Because that's a beautiful, poignant moment. You've wrecked it. So the TV show, and you know what? I am going to do an episode on it. I'm going to do an episode on it about the TV show's adaptation of Game Changer, and I'm going to talk about how I feel about it and what I think should have been done about it. I'm going to talk about that as a whole. But the TV show does not do Scott and Kip justice. So if you've only watched the TV show, I would highly recommend you start with this book. You absolutely must do this book first. And then you can go do Heat and Robbery, okay? Okay. So, yeah, I cannot recommend Game Changer highly enough, okay? So that concludes my book review on it. And next time, thanks for joining me, and that's